Every single night, without fail, at precisely 2:13 a.m., Liam would wake up. It wasn't a sudden noise that startled him awake, not a creak in the hallway or the wind rattling the window pane. It was a sound that seemed to come from inside his own chest, only it wasn't his. It was a heartbeat. Slow, heavy, and far too deep to be human. It pulsed from directly beneath his bedroom floorboards, a low thrum that vibrated through the mattress, through the springs, and settled deep within his bones. At first, he tried to dismiss it. He told himself it was just his imagination running wild in the dead of night, the mind playing tricks in the suffocating darkness. Maybe it was just the house settling or his own pulse echoing in his ears. But the sound was too consistent, too rhythmic. And the most unsettling part? The heartbeat from below always matched the rhythm of his own, looped up, except it was louder, stronger. It felt hungrier. One night, driven by a mix of fear and morbid curiosity, Liam decided he couldn't just lie there anymore. He slid out of bed, his bare feet cold against the wooden floor. He knelt down, pressing his ear flat against the floorboards, right over the spot where the vibration felt the strongest. The thumping sound was immense now, a resonant drumbeat filling his head, looped up. It was in perfect, unnerving synchrony with his own heart. He decided to test his theory. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, Liam held it, trying to slow his pulse, to force it out of rhythm with the sound below. For a moment, there was silence. His own heart slowed to a crawl in his chest, but the heartbeat below, it didn't slow down with him. Instead, it did the opposite. It sped up. Thump, 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 thump. It became frantic, desperate, as if whatever was trapped down there was suffocating, as if it needed him to breathe, as if it needed his heartbeat to survive. A cold dread washed over Liam. This wasn't his imagination. This was real. The next morning, his eyes baggy and his face pale, he tried to explain it to his parents. He described the sound, the vibration, the way it sped up when he held his breath. They exchanged worried glances, then patted his head and told him it was just a bad dream. "You have a very active imagination, sweetie," his mom had said, forcing a smile. Maybe less scary movies before bed, but Liam knew it wasn't a nightmare. Nightmares end when you wake up. This began when he did. Frustrated and feeling utterly alone, Liam knew he needed proof. He couldn't make his parents believe him with just words. That night, as the clock ticked past 2:12 a.m., he was ready. He sat up in bed, his phone in his trembling hand, the recording app open. As the numbers on the clock clicked over to 2:13, the familiar, heavy heartbeat started its nightly ritual. Thump, thump, thump. He held his phone as close to the floor as he could, making sure the microphone was aimed at the source. He recorded for several minutes, capturing the steady, powerful rhythm that had become the soundtrack to his sleepless nights. The next day, with the morning sun streaming into his room, he felt a little braver. He plugged his headphones into his phone, took a deep breath, and pressed play. The recording started with a bit of static, the sound of his own breathing. And then there it was, the deep, resonant heartbeat just as he'd heard it. But as he listened closer, a new wave of terror, colder and sharper than anything he'd felt before, washed over him. Buried beneath the rhythmic thumping, almost too faint to hear, was something else. A voice, a weak, raspy whisper. It was just a few words, stretched out and distorted by the recording. "Let me up." Liam ripped the headphones from his ears, his own heart now hammering against his ribs in a panicked frenzy. His blood ran cold. He knew that voice. He replayed the recording, turning the volume all the way up. "Let me up." There was no mistaking it. The voice was his. A terrified, desperate version of his own voice, pleading from beneath the floor. That night, Liam didn't even try to sleep. He waited, his baseball bat clutched in his hands, his eyes fixed on the floor. At 2:13 a.m., the heartbeat began, and with it, He could almost imagine the whispered plea. He couldn't take it anymore. He had to know. He found a loose floorboard near his bed, one that had always creaked when he stepped on it. Using the end of the bat as a lever, he wedged it into the crack and pried. The old wood groaned in protest before splintering and giving way. A rush of cold, damp air hit his face. It smelled of rich soil, of decay, and of something ancient and forgotten. He grabbed the flashlight from his knitstand, its beam cutting a sharp cone of light into the darkness below. He shone it into the narrow, dusty space between the floor joists. And then something moved. It wasn't a rat. It wasn't just a shadow cast by the flashlight. It was a hand. A pale, almost translucent hand, its skin cracked and dry like old parchment. It was shaking, reaching upward, its fingers twitching. As Liam instinctively pulled his own hand back, the hand below mimicked the movement, a perfect, horrifying reflection. It was like looking into a mirror, but the mirror was the dark, earthy space beneath his room. With his heart pounding a deafening rhythm in his ears, he forced himself to lower the flashlight further, and then he saw the face, his face. Gaunt, pale, with eyes that were dark pits of despair, but unmistakably his. It was staring up at him from the dirt, its lips moving, whispering in perfect sync with the frantic beat of his own heart. "You're the copy," it rasped, its voice now clear and venomous. "And I want my life back." In that instant, the heartbeat from below exploded. It was no longer a thump. It was a deafening, bone-shattering roar that filled the room, the house, his entire world. The thing that wore his face began to push upward with impossible strength, the floorboards splintering and cracking around the opening. Wood flew into the air. Liam screamed. He scrambled backward, dropping the flashlight, and ran. He fled for his parents' room, his bare feet pounding on the hallway floor. But the sound followed him. The heartbeat wasn't just in his room anymore. It was everywhere. It echoed through the walls, resonated up from the floor, pulsed inside his own skull, as if his skeleton had become a drum for this monstrous rhythm. He burst into his parents' bedroom, sobbing, trying to form words that wouldn't come. Alarmed, they shot out of bed and rushed past him, down the hall toward his room. When they flicked on the light, they found a scene of chaos. The floorboard was shattered, ripped open. A fine layer of dust and dirt covered everything. But the room was empty, and the sound, the deafening heartbeat, was gone. So was Liam. But the story doesn't end there. Because now, every night, his parents are woken up at exactly 2:13 a.m. They don't hear one heartbeat anymore. They hear two. One, slow and heavy, pulsing from beneath the floor of their son's empty room. And another, faster and more frantic, coming from inside the room itself. And neither one ever stops.